Hello and welcome to another video from the vault, where we listen into a classroom and see what there is to learn. Today we're going to hear about another logical puzzle called the Lady or the Tiger. Enjoy!
We're moving on to the next section of logical puzzles in section 2.3, Lady or the Tiger. Now this comes from a story that I think is fairly old by now, and at the end the hero character is captured, and he's interested in the king's daughter, and the king captures the hero and at the end presents him with two doors, saying that there's a tiger behind one, and if you choose that one, the tiger's going to eat you. And if you choose the other one, then that ensures your freedom. And then the story ends where the hero looks up at the princess and she points to a door. But we already know, did she point to a door with the tiger because they can never be together and death is better than being apart? Or did she point to the door that ensures his freedom and they could be together and there's a happy ending? We don't know. But this does give the idea of these puzzles where you have two doors, door number 1 and door number 2, and there are clues written on the doors to help us determine what is behind them. There could be a lady. Or a tiger. This will be embarrassing. Tiger. Well, I guess he has stripes.
Yeah, gotta have stripes.
That looks like a zebra. Tiger/zebra. Either way, you don't want to open the door with the tiger/zebra because they will eat you or trample you, one of the two. So the goal of these puzzles is to determine from the clues which door is the safe door to enter. Now the first one there, we have example 2.9, exercise 2.9. So each door has a statement. There could be a tiger behind it, there could be two ladies, two tigers, anything is possible, unless the king says otherwise. And our goal is to figure out, if we're the prisoner, figure out which one is the lady and represents our freedom. So in 2.9, the king announces that one of the signs on the doors is true, but the other one is false. And now we have to look at what they say. The first sign says, in this room there is a lady, and in the other room there is a tiger. So, lady here, and tiger in room 2. Let's say this is room 1 and this is room 2. And the second sign says in one of these rooms there is a lady, and in one of these rooms there is a tiger. Let's say here one of the rooms, lady, and one of the rooms, tiger. I'm only writing the first one to give us time to think. Sometimes just duplicating the question and making a little sketch or something gives your mind time to adjust and get used to what am I trying to do here. I'm not sure how yet, but trying to let my mind catch up. Now we have two ways of going about this, but regardless, I have to understand this "and" statement. It's a logical statement, a sentence that's going to be either true or false, and it has this "and" word in it, and both of them have that. So let's figure out an "and" statement first before coming back to this problem. "And" statements. We have to understand what that "and" word is doing in determining when the whole sentence is true and when it is false. So let's suppose I have two things in my hand and I'm making an "and" statement. You tell me when it's true and when it's false. So I have a remote and I have a piece of chocolate. So in this case, our sentence looks like A and B. I'm going to say something represented here, link it, and then say something else. So I'm holding up two things. I'm making the statement, I have a remote in my hand and I have a piece of chalk in my hand. Is that true or false? True. Not a trick question. So let's say it like this. A true, B true, the whole statement, or let's say like this, A, B. In my first situation, I said I had a remote in my hand, so that was true. I said I had a piece of chalk in my hand, as the second part of my statement, that was true. And you said the whole thing is true. Okay? Now I'm going to say the following. I have a remote in my hand and I have a piece of chalk in my hand. Is the whole statement true or false? False. So I was lying on the first one. I did not have a piece of chalk a remote in my hand. I did have a piece of chalk in my hand. But the "and" word really requires both. I claimed that I had a piece of chalk in my hand and a remote, but one of them wasn't true, and then the whole thing isn't true. Let's go the other way. Statement, I have a remote in my hand and I have a piece of chalk in my hand. True or false? False again, because I lied about the second one. First part was true, second part was false. I didn't have a piece of chalk and made the whole thing false. Last one, I have a remote in my hand and I have a piece of chalk in my hand. False, I lied in both. False and false makes the whole thing false. So that tells us that for an "and" statement, I just took an example to make it a little more intuitive, where that one might be a little more tricky. I have two sub-statements linked with an "and", making my whole statement. The whole statement is only true if both of the pieces are true. Everyone happy with that? I need to be able to understand when I'm reading a longer sentence and it has this "and" word, when is the whole thing true? I need both of the pieces that are linked to be true for the whole thing to be true. Any questions on "and" statements and when they're true or false? All right, so we have these in front of us. So now one strategy is we're doing deductive reasoning one way or another. One is to write out an argument. So let's say here, strategy 1 is to write out an argument sort of in the line premise, observation, conclusion. But in general, those are a little more convoluted depending on the problem. So it's really just a sequence of statements leading me to a conclusion with absolute certainty. So I have what the doors are saying. I have the signs on the doors there at the top of the next page after 2.3. One is I could say, well, if door 1 is true, then what can we say with certainty? When I have to go and look, I have to read the signs over and over and over because I really need to be comfortable with what they're saying to use that information. Let's suppose door 1 is true. And door 1 says, in this room there is a lady, and in the other room there is a tiger. If I assume door 1 is true, then exactly what it says is what's happening. Then I'll just shorten it. Room 1 has a lady, and room 2 has a tiger. What does door 2 say? In one of these rooms there is a lady, and in one of these rooms there is a tiger. So in this first assumption, room 1 has a lady, room 2 has a tiger. That means door 2 is also true. Because it says, in one of these rooms there's a lady, yeah, and my assumption happens to be room 1. And in one of these rooms there's a tiger. So door 2 is also true. But what did the king say early in that exercise? The king announces that one of the signs is true and the other one is false. So the king cannot be questioned. The king gives me extra information about the setup of the puzzle. So if I assume door 1 is true, then door 2 is automatically true as well. But that goes against what the king is saying. So let's say this contradicts the king, and we can't do that. Can't go against what the king's saying. So what does that tell us? That tells us that our original assumption was wrong, and door 1 can't be true. Otherwise, we have information that contradicts the king. So that can't be what's happening. So door 1 is false. Now what did door 1 say? So door 1 said, in this room there is a lady, and in the other room there is a tiger. That's not true. But the king says one of the signs is true. So door 1 is false, but door 2 is true. Because the king said one of them is true. So if it's not door 1, it has to be door 2. Stop me at any time if you're not following what's happening. This strategy is much more difficult to follow, but it is a deductive reasoning that we're doing. Is everyone happy so far? It makes sense so far. You have to follow this 100%. There's no guessing at any stage. So we've concluded door 1 can't be true. So door 1 is false. But the king said one of the doors is telling the truth, so then it has to be door 2. So what does door 2 say? In one of these rooms there's a lady, and in one of these rooms there's a tiger. So there is one lady and there's one tiger somewhere behind these. But remember, door 1 is false. So with one lady and one tiger, it can't be what door 1 says. Door 1 says, In this room there's a lady, room 1, and in the other room there's a tiger. That can't be what's happening. So the opposite has to happen. And with only one lady and one tiger, it just has to flip around. I'll squeeze it in here. Let's say here we conclude that room 1 has a tiger and room 2 has a lady. So the prisoner should choose room or door 2. If you feel confused by this strategy 1, that's okay, that's why I do it. It is a valid strategy, and this is what deductive reasoning can look like. But it is difficult to follow because of all the words and one sentence leading to the next, leading to the next. And it's one thing for you to follow what I'm doing. It's another thing for you to come up with this on your own. So is there maybe a better way, just a more efficient way to handle these kinds of problems? There's nothing wrong with this. It's very nice. But it's more difficult to follow and come up with on your own. Any other thoughts about this? No thoughts. Too early for thoughts. I'm void of thought. All right. Can we come up with another strategy that for these kinds of problems that is easier to do and has some consistency, one problem to the next, because you can look, we're going to do many of them. And the downside of a deductive reasoning strategy like this is it's always going to change, and I don't know where to start. Every time I can start at some different sentence, and the path is different to get to my conclusion. And that creates difficulty. Can I come up with something that's a little more consistent and easier at the same time? An alternative of what we could do is say, let's say here room 1 and room 2. We only have 2 rooms. So what if we say, well, let's just look at all the possibilities of what could be inside these rooms. Best case, there's a lady in room 1 and a lady in room 2. It's the prisoner's lucky day if that happens. And I can't say that that doesn't happen. There's nothing that tells me that that can't happen. So I have to consider that possibility, as unlikely as it may seem. Or I could have a mix. I could have a lady and a tiger this way, or they could be the other way. There could be a tiger in room 1 and a lady in room 2. Is there any possibility missing? The worst case for the prisoner, if both rooms have a tiger, they're pretty much screwed, but at least they would go in knowing they're screwed. And that might give them some little comfort before they're completely mauled to death. I don't know. At least they know that there was no way to make a better choice. That gives us some comfort. So these are the only possibilities of what could happen. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at what the signs are saying above these rooms and consider one scenario at a time. We're just considering this. We're not looking at any of this. You see this? No, you don't, because we're not looking at this. We're only looking at that. What confuses people often with this strategy is they want to look at all of it. You look at one possibility at a time. You don't look at anything else. We're just considering this lady possibility. And then evaluate, are the signs on the doors true or false? And how does it match with what the king is saying? Is it possible, or does it contradict the king in some way? If it does, I can conclude that that's not possible. We can't go against what the king is saying. Now, if it's a lady-lady scenario, door 1 says, in this room there is a lady, and in the other room there is a tiger. Is that true or false? It's false. Yes, in this room there is a lady, but that's not a tiger. False. This is our first example. Don't be embarrassed or have any feelings towards asking a question if you're not sure. Room 2. In one of these rooms there is a lady, and in one of these rooms there is a tiger. True or false? False, because they're both ladies. Now the king said, one of the signs is true, but the other one is false. So does that fit with what the king is saying? No, in this case, they're both false. So this is not possible. We can't go against what the king says. So the whole thing is out. It can't be what's happening, sadly, for the prisoner. So then I move on to the next scenario. One at a time. I'm going to find the right one because I've listed them all. The right one has to be there. It's just a matter of finding it. So if I'm looking at the lady tiger scenario, the possibility, look at what room 1 is saying. In this room there is a lady, and in the other room there is a tiger. True or false? It's false. I'm looking just at this. If this is what's happening, is the sign above door 1 true or false? Read it again. In this room there is a lady. Now this is what room 1 is saying, right? In this room there is a lady, and in the other room there is a tiger. True or false? True. True. Again, you're not looking at this. You see that? No, you don't. There's nothing there. You just look at this. Nothing else. Nothing else. With blinders on or whatever you need to do. Door 2 is saying something as well, similar but not the same. Trying to see if that's true or false. It says, in one of these rooms there is a lady, and in one of these rooms there is a tiger. Is that true or false? That is true. How does that fit with what the king is saying? Does it agree with what the king is saying? Does it fit? Or does it go against what the king is saying? It goes against. The king says one's true and one's false. But in this scenario, they're both true. So I conclude that's not possible. Cannot question the king. So that's not what's happening. So I keep going. I'm going to find it. Because the problem is designed to have one answer. It's one of those 4. I'll find it eventually. If I'm considering the tiger lady scenario, now we secretly know that's what's happening, right? But let's suppose we're not doing this one. We're opting for a more systematic, easier to follow strategy. Then we wouldn't have done the strategy 1. So we wouldn't know the answer. Now, room 1 says, in this room there is a lady, and in the other room there is a tiger. True or false? False. False. It fails right away. There's no lady in there. False. Door 2. In one of these rooms there's a lady, and in one of these rooms there's a tiger. True. That is true. It doesn't say where. How does that fit with what the king is saying? It fits with what the king is saying. So there's nothing telling me that this is not possible. It is possible. But just for the sake of being complete, let's test the last one as well. So nothing tells me to throw that third possibility out. It fits with what the king says. It's very much possible. Now, these problems will be designed well. So once you find a possibility, that is the answer. There's no multiple options that could be true. If you find one, you can stop. But because it's the first one, let's practice the last one as well, to just emphasize that there is only one answer. If I'm looking at the tiger-tiger scenario, the prisoner is hoping this is not what's happening, but they want to know. Room 1 says, in this room there is a lady, and in the other room there is a tiger. True or false? False. There's no lady in there. Remember, an and statement can only be true if both pieces are true. And it fails right away. Second room says, in one of these rooms there's a lady, it fails right away. And in the other room there is and in one of these rooms there's a tiger. The first one, there's no lady in there, so that's false as well. And that goes against what the king is saying, so that cannot be what's happening. And I conclude that this is the only possibility and therefore the answer. Between the two strategies, which one do you like?
Number 2.
I think number 2 has a lot of benefits. It does have downsides, but not really for us. The benefits are it's systematic, it's clear, and it's always going to be the same. Whereas this is going to change every time. The path you take changes every time in strategy 1. The downside to strategy 2 is it can only handle a small number of rooms. But for our purposes, we're never going to face a lot of rooms, so it's not going to be a big deal. So I'm going to continue with strategy 2, since it feels as if this one is easier to follow. But if you have strong feelings towards strategy 1, you can always do that at any stage. It's just a little more tricky to know where to start. Now the issue is simply to do enough of these to get comfortable with the strategy and see a little variation here and there. So the whole strategy 2 and 1 are explained there. 2.3.2, variations. Just to practice and see what other things can happen, and strategy 2 would still be very similar. So exercise 2.10, the king announces that the signs are either both true or both false. So the king is essentially changing the rules just a little bit, and I have to stay within those rules. So I have to always be very aware of what the king is saying, because that really determines what's possible and what's not. Is everyone seeing the correct question in front of them? So, 2.10, we have room 1 and we have room 2. And because I have 2 rooms and lady-tiger combinations are all possible without any further information, I'm just listing them all. Lady, 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 tiger, tiger, lady, tiger, tiger. All right. Again, feel free to interrupt. Don't wait for me to ask, are there any questions before you ask the question. Just interrupt me mid-sentence, doesn't matter. Anytime you're not sure about anything. Now the king says that the signs are either both true or both false. Door 1 says, at least one of these rooms contains a lady. What does at least mean? At least one. One or more. At least one or more. So if you like, you can swap it out and write one or more. That's fine. Door 2 says a tiger is in the other room. That's a very simple statement. Okay, now we're going to go and consider the first one. Lady, lady. See which one is true, which one's false, and how it matches with what the king is saying. Door 1 says, at least one of these rooms contains a lady. True or false? True. One or more. Yeah, absolutely. If you're ever not sure when I write down a true or a false, because you're going to have to do this on your own eventually, please stop me. Door 2 says, a tiger is in the other room. False. How does that compare with what the king is saying? I have to forget about the previous example. It doesn't exist anymore. This is the new example. The king says something different here. How does it compare with what the king said? No, the king said they're either both true or both false, and this is a mix, so it's not possible. You're out. That's okay. Next possibility. Door 1 says, at least one of these rooms contains a lady. True. Door 2 says, a tiger is in the other room. False. Compared to what the king said, possible or not? Not possible. So that is also not what's happening. Is everyone happy so far? Does it feel okay? It feels doable?
Maybe slightly stupid. Why is
There are no stupid questions.
Why is it false for room 2?
Because room 2 says a tiger is in the other room. So from room 2's perspective, this is the other room. There isn't a tiger in there.
Okay.
So it's relative to the room.
Thank you.
There are no stupid questions. Now I consider the third possibility, tiger lady. See what happens to each door, or what they say. Door 1, at least one of these rooms contains a lady. True or false? True. There's one or more ladies. Door 2, a tiger is in the other room. Oh, did I say false here? Sorry. That's a true, right? At least one of these rooms contains a lady. That's true. Tigers in the other room, that's true as well. Compared to what the king said, either both true or both false. So it doesn't go against what the king said. So this is very much possible. And because it's designed nicely, we could stop there. But I'm curious to practice the last one. Why not? But yes, in the test, you can stop whenever you find one that works. Let's just test tiger, tiger. Door 1 says at least one of these rooms contains a lady. That is false. Door 2 says a tiger is in the other room. That's true. But it's a mix, which goes against what the king said. Not possible. Just emphasizing that there's only going to be one answer. In this case, the prisoner should choose door number 2. Does it feel manageable, doable? There's light at the end of the tunnel. So, let us continue with more variations to get used to reading the signs, determining if they're true or false. Which one are we doing now? I've lost. Which one are we doing? 211? I think I need to turn the camera again. 2:11, let's see what the king says first. The king announces that again the signs are either both true or both false. Okay, so it's the same setup as 2.10. That helps because we're used to that one. So I'm again going to list the rooms with all the possibilities. Lady, lady. Lady tiger. Tiger lady. Tiger lady. Tiger tiger. Going through each one at a time to figure out where is the one that's actually happening. It'd be lovely if it's lady lady. And it might be one of these days. I just don't know for sure, and I can't exclude that possibility. Now I look. Door 1 says different things than in 2.10. A tiger is in this room, or a lady is in the other room. We haven't seen an or before. So let's just pause and look at that before we go too far into this exercise. Let's look, just like we did for an and statement, let's look at statements that have this or linking word in them. It's not the same necessarily. So we'll come back to that one as soon as we understand this or statement and how to work with it. So now I have something of the form A or B, where these could be little sub-statements making my big one. So I'll have a table, A, B, and then the whole statement. All right. Where's my remote? There's my remote. All right. Here's my example that feels a little more intuitive to me than ladies and tigers. First example, I'm saying I have a remote in my hand and I have, that's right, wrong one, or. I have a remote in my hand or I have a piece of chalk in my hand. True or false? Or is a little more tricky. True. I didn't say it has to be exclusive. It's just one or the other. So in this case, when both of them are true, the whole thing is true. I have a remote in my hand, or I have a piece of chalk in my hand. As long as I have one of them, I'm good. I have a remote in my hand, or I have a piece of chalk in my hand. It's small, but it's right there. That is still true. It's not exclusive. It doesn't have to be one or the other, but not both. As long as I have one of them, it's true. And if I did it the other way around, where I had a remote, but not a piece of chalk, that would still be true. But if I had neither one of them, I have a remote in my hand or I have a piece of chalk in my hand. That's not true. So if both of them are false, I need one of them. The whole thing will be false. So it's different than and statement. An and statement was more restrictive. It required both pieces to be true for the whole thing to be true. An or statement just requires that one of them is true. It doesn't have to be both. So it's a little more relaxed. Any questions on an or statement? That one might be a little more confusing, but it comes up in this 2:11, so we have to be able to deal with it. Now I go back to my example. Lady, lady is what I consider. And door 1 says, a tiger is in this room or a lady is in the other room. With my knowledge of or statements, is that true or false? True, as long as I have one of them and I have the second piece. So it's true. Door 2 says something nice and simple. A lady is in the other room. True. Can it be the prisoner's lucky day? How does that match with what the king is saying? It matches with what the king is saying. Wow. I'm a little skeptical. Maybe we could have made a mistake. I don't know. So it is a good idea, and you'll have time to do that. Check the others. Check the others. Just sort of as a safety. So far, this seems to be possible. I'm just skeptical. Can it be the king is that kind? I like it. So let's check the others and see. Lady Tiger. I have that backup that I can check the other scenarios to confirm this. Lady Tiger. A tiger, door 1 says, a tiger is in this room or a lady is in the other room. That a tiger is in this room, no. Or a lady is in the other room, no. So it's the bottom one, and I have neither one of those pieces. Door 2, a lady is in the other room. That's true. That does not go with what the king is saying, so I can throw that one out. So far so good. Let's go to the third one. Door 1 says, a tiger is in this room, or a lady is in the other room. A tiger is in this room. I already have that. I just need one of them. Or a lady is in the other room. That's just true on both parts. Room 2, a lady is in the other room. That is definitely false. It's a mix, so that's not possible either. The prisoner is getting a bigger smile on their face as we go. Then the last scenario, oh, I need to scratch this out. Last scenario, tiger, tiger. Door 1 says, a tiger is in this room. Or, a lady is in the other room. That's true, a tiger is in this room. Door 2, a lady is in the other room. False. So as hard as it was to believe, that is the luckiest prisoner ever. Let's put a little box around it if we don't want to write a sentence. And the prisoner is free regardless of what they choose. So let's do the next one, which is number 2.12. See if I'm going to. So let's just read at the bottom of the page before that exercise. In the next example, the king is now a little frustrated that every prisoner he's playing with, putting in front of these doors, they seem to pick the right door, they figure everything out, and I guess he has to give them their freedom. So he thought, let's get a little more creative and step up the complexity of the rules a little bit. Now, if a lady is in room 1, then the sign on the door is true. If a tiger is in room 1, then the sign is false. For room 2, door 2, if a lady is behind door 2, the sign is false. And if a tiger is behind door 2, the sign is true. So it's flipped around. Does that sound confusing in any way? A little bit, yes. So, we don't know if there's a lady or a tiger behind the doors. there's a door, and there's a door. 1, 2. If there's a lady hiding behind the first one, then whatever the sign says is true. But if there's a tiger hiding behind that first door, then whatever the sign says is false. And behind door 2, it's the reverse. So now he's presenting the prisoner with some doors, with signs. Each sign is saying something. How do we make sense of this? Now, for me at least, becomes even more important to really pick a strategy that helps us keep track of this much more complicated situation. And I like the one where we're just going to list what could possibly happen and then see. Because it was easier to understand, it was easier to keep track of everything. So we're going to do the same thing. Now we just have 2 rooms again. So we're listing all the possibilities. There could be a lady behind both, or a lady, then a tiger, or a tiger, and then a lady, or a tiger, and another tiger. So that's pretty straightforward. It's the same. Regardless of the complexity, listing all the possibilities with 2 rooms, that's very manageable. Now my strategy is the same. I'm looking at one of these scenarios at a time, keeping the rules in mind. The king doesn't give any other information. So now I have to consider, is this scenario possible? Now the rules that the king said were, if there's a lady behind, or if there's a lady in room 1, whatever the sign says, the king says is true. So I know that in this scenario there's a lady in room 1. I'm considering if that's possible. So I know that the sign should be true. So I put that in brackets. This is what it's supposed to be, because whatever the king says is fact. And he said, if there's a lady in room 1, whatever the sign says is true. Now let's compare it to what the sign is actually saying in this scenario. The sign on door 1 says, both rooms contain ladies. Is that true or false? In this first scenario, it is true. So we say that is consistent with what the king is saying. It matches with what the king is saying. The king says, if there's a lady in room 1, the sign is true. And in this scenario, the sign is in fact true. So it doesn't go against what the king is saying. Now, in room 2, my scenario that I'm considering has a lady in room 2. The king says that if there's a lady behind door 2, the sign is false. So now let's see what the sign is saying. The sign behind for door 2 says both rooms they say the same thing. Both rooms contain ladies. Is that true? That is true. But that is inconsistent. That doesn't match what the king said should be happening. So I conclude, possible or not possible? No, not possible. So we're doing pretty much the same thing. The rules of the game are just changing. Did that make sense, what we did there, and how we approach this? Okay. So, not possible, because they don't match. What the king says is supposed to happen doesn't match with what is happening if both of them have ladies. Therefore, that's not possible. Yeah, that's fine. I'm moving on to the next one. It's not the best case for the prisoner, but maybe they still have a chance of picking a lady and their freedom. Now I'm considering the scenario lady and tiger. Nothing else, just that scenario. Is that possible? Well, If there's a lady in room 1, the sign should be true. Now let's see what it actually is. Both rooms contain ladies. True or false? This is what I'm considering in the rooms. Both rooms contain ladies. True or false? False. That's not a lady. It could be a lady tiger, but it's not a lady. Now, the king said, if there's a lady in this room, the sign is true. But if this is if this is what's inside the rooms, the sign is false. So it doesn't match with what the king is saying. It should be happening. So right away I can conclude this is not possible. Regardless of what sign 2 is saying, it already doesn't match with what the king is saying. This could also match or not. It's already fallen apart at this first one. You can check it if you want to for practice. If there's a tiger behind room 2, should the sign be true or false? You have to really remember the rules of the game. So you have to read that description portion over and over and over. It's the reverse. Now, what does it say? Both rooms contain ladies. That's false. So on both of those, it doesn't match what the king is saying. So it's doubly not possible. But I only need one of them. If this doesn't match, then what I consider isn't what the king says is happening, therefore it's not possible. Now take like 30 seconds and do this third one. Because we have to start converting to where you do it on your own and think about this on your own. Sitting back and me walking you through it is all good, but after a while we have to switch. So it'll take like hours, just a minute, and see what you get. I'll slowly fill it in, hopefully slower than you. All right, hopefully you beat me to it. Did everyone get that? What do I conclude? Not possible? Or did I just hear that? Possible or not possible? If you say not possible, it's totally fine. You can say whatever you want. Why do you say that? Is there anything that doesn't match up with what the king says is happening? If I consider tiger lady, the king says, if there's a tiger in room 1, the sign is false. The sign is false. So it matches with what the king said. Now I consider a lady in room 2. The king said, if there's a lady in room 2, the sign is false. The sign is false. So it matches again. So it is very much possible. Nothing contradicts what the king is saying. There is nothing that tells me that that can't happen. It could be what's happening. Any questions or concerns? They match up. Doesn't contradict the king, doesn't contradict the king. So it's possible. Based on the information that I have. Let's check the next one. If there's a tiger in room 1, what should the sign be? False. What is the sign saying? Both rooms contain ladies. True or false? False. So far, everything's matching with what the king said is happening. If there's a tiger in room 2, what should the sign be? True. We have to know the rules or we can't do this. What is the sign saying? Both rooms contain ladies. That is very much false. Doesn't match with what the king says is happening in room 2. Not possible. Therefore, the only possible scenario is a tiger in room 1, a lady in room 2. I have to conclude that that is what's happening. Because nothing else could happen. What you're left with has to be the answer. Thoughts, feelings, concerns? No thoughts at this time? You're void of thought? Pretty much. All right. The nice thing is that the next example has the same rules. A lady in room 1, the sign is true. A tiger in room 1, the sign is false. A lady in room 2, the sign is false. A tiger in room 2, the sign is true. So let's see if we can handle 213. Again, I'm listing all the possibilities. Do that first. List all the possibilities. Lady, 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 tiger, tiger, lady, and tiger, tiger. It's very quiet. Not loving the quiet. Makes me uncomfortable. It's awkward. Is it quiet because it's so easy? Is it quiet because it's not easy at all? I don't know because it's so quiet. I don't know. You don't tell me, I don't know. Okay, so yes, the signs are saying different things, but the setup is the same, the rules are the same. So I'm looking at the first scenario, lady, lady. If there's a lady in room 1, what should the sign be according to the king? True. Now let's see what it actually is in that scenario. At least one room contains a lady. True or false? True. So everything so far is matching up with what the king is saying. We're good. If there is a lady in room 2, what should the sign be? False. Now let's see what it is. It says the other room contains a lady.
True.
That's true. Conclusion? Not possible. Sadly, the prisoner is out of luck. That is not what's happening. Stop me at any time if you missed any part of it. Now I'm considering the next one, Lady Tiger. If there's a lady in room 1, the sign should be true. Let's see what it says. I can't remember what it says. I read again. At least one room contains a lady. True or false? That is true. At least one is one or more. If there is a tiger in room 2, what should the sign be? True. What does it say? I can't remember. Reading again. The other room contains a lady. Ooh, that's true as well. Conclusion?
Possible.
Very possible. But since we have so few examples, let's keep going. In a test, you are, or anytime, you are welcome to stop as soon as you get a possible one. That is going to be the answer, because these problems are designed to have one answer. So as soon as you find a possible one, that's your answer. But for the sake of practice, I'm going to do the other two as well. If there's a tiger in room 1, the sign should be false. Let's see what the sign says. At least one room contains a lady. True or false? True. What do I do next? Move on with my life, because immediately it doesn't match up. I don't even care what's happening in room 2. Doesn't match up. Not possible. Nothing can contradict what the king is saying. The king's word is law, fact. Can't go against it. So you can save yourself a little bit of time by not even bothering with the other part. As soon as you find a contradiction, you can stop. Now, tigers, just for the sake of practice. If there's a tiger in room 1, the sign is false. What does it say? At least one room contains a lady. That is false. It doesn't matter if it's true or false. What matters is if it matches up, and it does. If there's a tiger in room 2, then the sign should be true. What does it say? The other room contains a lady. That is false, doesn't match up with what it should be saying, or with how it should behave. Not possible. And I do, in fact, only have the one solution, which I said is what happens. Could have stopped there, but it was good to get some practice. So the lady is in room 1. And the prisoner escapes yet again. Any questions or comments? What are they going to ask? I'm going to keep asking. And it's going to happen eventually. That shyness has to go away sometime.
We do appreciate that you do ask.
Oh, thank you. Okay, one more. So, of course, I know you've all been wondering, and I know that's why you're so quiet. When do I get to more doors? This is too easy. I want more doors. I know. So I have one with more doors. That's one example. Of course, there are many, but we want to keep the complexity fairly low. 214. 3 doors. And the king announced that one of the rooms contained a lady and the other 2 contained tigers. Further, he explained at most one of the 3 signs was true. So now I have 3 doors. My strategy seems to be working, so I'm going to keep going with it. How many different possibilities do I have to list?
3.
Only 3, because he said there's 1 lady and 2 tigers. So it could be lady, tiger, tiger. Or the lady could be in room 2, and then a tiger here, and a tiger here. Or the lady could be in room 3, and a tiger in each of the other ones. So they make it manageable. Even if they didn't say that and I had all the possibilities, it was still manageable. But in this case, they make it even easier. Those are the 3 possibilities. And it's important that you list all the possibilities for the question. Otherwise, the one you miss could be the one that's right. I have to make sure your list is complete. Now, the extra information that the king provides refers to the number of true signs. At most, one of the 3 signs was true. What does at most one mean? Is that at most one? What does that mean? Yes. One or less. One or less. Okay. One at a time. Top one. Now I have to, what's tricky for some is I have to let go of the previous rules. This, the rule that the king said, there's a lady in room 1, then it's true, and so on, that doesn't apply anymore. New game. New game. Those rules don't apply anymore. So I'm not sure if it's perfectly clear for the next. Those rules were only for 212 and 213. Okay, so lady, tiger, tiger. Let's see what door 1 says. A tiger is in this room. True or false? False. Door 2. A lady is in this room.
False.
False. Door 3. A tiger is in room 2. True. Possible or not? First one's possible. Nice. Did someone say not possible? How do I know if it's possible or not? I count the number of trues. And the king said there can be at most one. One or less, I have one. So that's possible. Now, yes, you can stop there, but I don't know which order you're listing these, right? I could have listed this one first. Then I wouldn't get the first scenario as the answer. I just happened to list it this way, and the first one is correct. Since that is our last lady tiger example, we're going to do the other 2 as well. Tiger, lady, tiger. Door 1 says a tiger is in this room. True. Door 2 says a lady is in this room. True. What do you want to do next? Move on. Why? I already have 2 truths, and I can have 1 or less. So it really doesn't matter what door 3 is saying. This is already not possible. I already have 2 truths. Last one, tiger, tiger, lady. Door 1 says a tiger is in this room. True. Door 2 says a lady is in this room. False. Well, I only have 1 true. What's going to happen? Door 3 says a tiger is in room 2. True. Conclusion? Not possible. I have 2 truths. And as I said, there is only 1 answer, which I could have stopped at. Oh, this one. What am I doing? I just got excited. Wanted to put a boxer on something, I didn't care what. Obviously this one. Not that one. And the prisoner should choose door 1.
Please remember to click the like button if you enjoyed the video, and to subscribe if you want to be notified of more videos. Also, please visit me on my Patreon page if you want to support me in making further content. Thank you.